Okay. Um, what's the return? What and I guess Bitcoin is a special asset, so a special, asset class. So maybe tied to that, you gotta explain what a mining cycle is and then, explain the return.
Yeah, this is I mean, again, just like we could spend 10 hours on pools, there's no end to how we could talk about the ROI in mining because there's so many different variables. You've got the network itself where people are always putting on or taking off computing power, and that makes it more or less competitive. You've got the price of Bitcoin itself. You have the efficiency of your units. There's so many different variables to take into account. And so we've got to be very careful with making any sort of prescriptive, this is what you're going to make. What I like to boil it down to is you just assume a static system, right? When you're working through engineering problems, a static system is always easier to make determinations on than something that's in motion. And the Bitcoin network is always in motion. But in a static system, with Bitcoin just staying right around 100K for the foreseeable future and no other change in the network, your most efficient machine is making somewhere between 25 and 35% returns on a yearly basis. And that's just because you're arbitraging the market price of Bitcoin and your cost of production. And that is the simplest way that I can boil it down. The other way that we can talk about it is mining is sort of like an option strategy on Bitcoin almost, where whatever you're expecting Bitcoin to do, mining tends to be beta correlated. So mining will do it even more. And that's part of why we were talking about earlier those high efficiency machines versus lower efficiency machines, is that the higher efficiency machines are sort of like an in the money option where you're sort of insulated from risk and there's more upside, but your upside is kind of capped because you're not taking as much risk. Whereas these lower efficiency units can be like far out of the money call options where they can expire worthless and not make any money. But if you're right on direction and timing, those low efficiency units can actually get you a multiple of the return that you get for in the money call options. So that's the best analogy I have is that mining is essentially like you taking a long-term leverage bet on Bitcoin's direction.
Okay. So just to I got this number from you guys. So and I know this is all pure estimate, but just for illustration purposes, assuming the BTC stays at 100K, right? Can you
Yes.
break it down for us a little bit, the on this one?
Absolutely. So what you've got on screen is a $500,000 upfront investment, and these are assuming the highest efficiency units. So those are the $10,000 price point units. So you got about
Just
50 of
so
those.
people know, like they don't have to front 500,000, right? They can do.
You can get as little as a single unit, and we have plenty of people who do that. We just see that the average for people is in that one to $500,000 range tends
Got
to be what most people are allocating for it to be, worthwhile income stream. You can see on screen as well. I
it.
mean, your passive income per month at these figures is just over 10K a month, which is enough to replace most people's income. When you're just getting a single unit, you're unlikely to replace your entire income stream. It's just going to be a couple $100 net per month. So it's cool, it's fun, but it's maybe less impactful than having all of your income replaced. So
Right,
this
right.
is
So,
this is just a way of illustrating
right.
how it's possible to actually replace a high earning salary with Bitcoin mining.
Okay. So let's just look at this. Say somebody bought 50 units up front and each one costs 10K. As you said, this is the highest efficiency machine. And then what happens?
So what happens after that is that those machines are getting hooked up. You've got those put into our facility for you, and then all you have in terms of expenses after that is a flat fee that includes electricity, includes maintenance, includes technician labor, includes all your spare parts. And so that's why you see all these zero line items, is
So it's all
because
inclusive in the two.
everything is all inclusive. And this
Okay.
this goes back to my nightmare story was having a very highly paid college intern break my stuff was the privilege that I received for working with the partner that I chose. And so I wanted to solve that immediately and not bill people for what I believe is just the bare minimum what you should expect from a service like this is people maintaining your hardware in a good environment and spending the time and having the spare parts on hand to make sure that your equipment runs well. So that's why we do flat fee, all inclusive. You should never see another line item on your bill unless your machine has gone out of warranty and there's some part that we don't keep on hand, and that's not a very common occurrence at all. And so,
You know what? That's exactly the solution I was looking for. Couldn't find them, but very happy you guys offer that because, like, I've heard horror stories about electricity bills when people mine. So if make it fixed, and make it all inclusive. Very good certainty in terms of budgeting planning. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, there's already a lot of variables in this investment that makes it very challenging to pencil out an ROI with any sort of certainty. And so to the degree that we can take out that uncertainty and make sure that you know that your costs are perfectly fixed, I think that only helps people and makes it a little bit easier. You know, it's not great if you're expecting to get 10K net a month, and then all of a sudden you've got a $30,000 repair bill. It's just like a tenant moving out of your house and doing a really terrible turnover and destroying everything. It can wipe out a lot of your income if you've got something that happens that you're not expecting. And so to the degree that we can protect people from uncertainty, I think that only helps our clients and makes this a really superior service.
Right. And can you explain the expect returns on the right?
Absolutely. So on the right, you've got your output per unit per year. So that's right now 0.052 Bitcoin per unit per year. That's about $5,200 if Bitcoin's at 100K, which we're sitting just over 100K at the time of this recording. So between 50 units, you should expect about $260,000 in revenues. And then out of those revenues, you just have to deduct that inclusive hosting fee, that 225 a month per unit. So for 50 units for the entire year, that's 135,000, which leaves you with net passive income of 125,000 for the year. Divided by 12 is $10,416 per month, assuming again $100,000 Bitcoin price.
Okay. So that output per unit. So what about the low efficiency machines? Are they also pumping out 0.052 roughly, BTC?
The low efficiency units are slightly lower. So just for raw numbers, the top end unit produces 270 terahash. That's essentially just how much raw computing power it has. Our mid-tier unit is 235, and then the low tier unit is 200. So divide that into your proportions, and you're looking at more like 0.04 or 0.045 for those other units.
Okay. Great. And I know that you mentioned there are different components to the returns. One part is what we just talked about, which is the actual Bitcoin mining itself. And there are two other components. So I think the first one you mentioned is this one. Care to explain?
Absolutely. So there's a couple reasons why people get into mining. One is you're wanting to get more Bitcoin for the same capital outlay, assuming that everything goes right in mining. So that's reason one. I can use the same amount of capital and get more Bitcoin over time. The second reason that people get into mining is because if you just buy Bitcoin on the market, that is essentially after tax money that you're using. You don't get any sort of deductions, depreciation, nothing of that sort. It's an indefinite, intangible asset, and it does not have any sort of depreciation schedule. So when you get into mining, you are actually buying physical equipment, which exists in the physical world and has a depreciation schedule. It also has operating expenses. So these are two levers that you can pull on your taxes that, especially for business owners and investors, can make the difference between this being sort of attractive and really solving a huge problem for a high earner. So what do I mean by that? You've got all of that electricity that you're paying for, those hosting fees, those are 100% write-offs against any income that your mining is produces. Uh, and then you've also got depreciation, which in the US right now, bonus depreciation is 40% in year one. We're currently watching the big, beautiful bill go through.
Mhm.
Legislature might bring back 100% bonus depreciation in year one, which would be a huge benefit to people who are getting into mining and have a bunch of income that they need to offset. But the principle in this is that about half of your total investment up front right now is completely you can write it off against any income that you have, and that is extremely helpful for high earners, and also means that you've got a higher effective ROI if you're saving yourself from paying your government by choosing to mine Bitcoin instead of buy it.
So essentially what you're saying is that Bitcoin mining is actually an operating business. It's not an investment. It's actually an operating business. Whereas you got real machines that are operating, and therefore you can write everything off pretty much like how business can do write-offs. And I see the estimation of the write-offs here. So assuming if somebody's marginal tax is what, 50%, like that right there is an additional return of 150,000.
You got it right. And it is. It truly is an operating business in a box that somebody else is managing for you. And it's got all of the tax benefits of having an operating business, which many people choose to start a business just because it is a better tax structure than doing investments personally.
So essentially, you can write off the hardware and all of your electricity. Beautiful. Okay, can I
Correct.
write off the fees? I can, right, as well. The hosting fees to you guys. That's also
Sorry, you can. Yes.
yeah.
Those hosting fees, that's an operating business expense. So that's all combined into one line item, but it
Oh,
includes things like electricity, maintenance, labor, all of these line items that would be complete write-offs if you were operating the business yourself.
right. So if you are a high margin earner, the component of write-off will return you, 150 in this example, and then your actual earning of Bitcoin will be about 120. So, um, that's so that's already you're already close to 300K. What's the third component?
The third thing, which we just mentioned briefly, is when done right, mining returns more than just buying Bitcoin with the same capital up front. And the graph that you've got on screen is a comparison for the orange line of if you just bought Bitcoin on day one in early 2020 and held it through the end of 2024, what your return is. And that's 627%. In the white line, you've got the deduction of the machine cost. So the machine itself is actually an asset, but this white line is considering that it's a worthless asset. So if you just bought your machine, mined Bitcoin, sold it every day that you mined it, and then finished out toward the end of the graph in early 2024, you're looking at 971% return. So already better performing than just holding Bitcoin.
So
The
so in the white line, you're assuming you're selling the machine for nothing, like you're just throwing it away, right?
Exactly. And what we've seen in the past is that, especially if you're selling in a bull run, the machine that you bought years ago might actually sell for more than it did on the day that you bought it. So, a good example of this would be in 2020, the top of the line unit was going for about $2,000 a unit. And then very quickly, by the end of 2021, that same unit, even used, was going for 12 to $15,000 per unit because it was producing so much more net income in Bitcoin terms than on the day that you bought it. So this is what's really interesting is these computers are actually an asset that if you hold on to them through the right cycles, you don't want to assume appreciation, but if you liquidate them at the right time, they can actually appreciate in both Bitcoin terms and dollar terms.
That's crazy.
So
But what is the lifespan of a machine?
a machine usually is going to last somewhere between 6 and 10 years in terms of its physical life. If you're in a great climate like Oregon, where it's cool and the air is clean, probably up toward that 10-year range if it's being maintained really well, which we do.
Hmm.
In terms of economic lifespan, which is different than the physical life, you usually see a machine start to get irrelevant after 4 to 6 years. So that's where the cycle timing actually comes into play. If you deploy at the right time in the cycle, which Bitcoin is typically run on 4-year cycles, you might get two really good price runs out of a machine's life, or you might just get one. So your machine, it's good to assume that you're replacing it after about 5 years, especially because at the end of 5 years, your depreciation schedule is up, so your offsets start to decrease. It makes a lot of sense to roll into a new machine a higher efficiency machine and restart that depreciation schedule. So we have people that we encourage to rotate out about every 5 years. You can also do that in stages. So rotate part of your portfolio after 2 years, and then you've got half and half, and then rotate the next part of your portfolio after another 2 years, and then you're fully upgraded. So it's kind of a hybrid rotation cycle.
Yeah, and you guys will help plan all that, right?
Absolutely. We've got a really deep network of brokers on the secondhand market so that you can resell your machines into.
Okay, that's great. So assuming this is like what, 25 years? I'm just looking at the graph, 25 years. So that's roughly like 20, so that's roughly, you
That
know,
graph is actually just showing a 4 year cycle. So mid or early 2020 to early 2024.
oh, 4 years. So that means you're doing 100, about 120% return if you just buy Bitcoin. And if you mine Bitcoin, your return is about 250% annually. And if you actually mine Bitcoin and you sold your machine at a peak, which is idealistic, but you know, you're getting like 250% return every year.
It's a 10x in 4 years, which I've never heard anybody be mad about that before.
That certainly not me. I mean, hey, I I can do half of that. I mean, just give me half. I'm very happy with that. Okay, now here comes my so okay, sorry. So just to make it clear, to sum it up, I think from this, um, I think roughly you estimate the return if Bitcoin price doesn't even go up, if stays 100K and then before next halving, essentially the return is about what, 25, 30 per year? Is that what you're estimating?
Yes, you should expect in most cases that you're getting all of your money back within that first 3 years or sooner. And if
Okay.
Bitcoin's going up faster, then I've seen it happen in under a year. But one of the things that I make sure to tell people is if you're expecting to get your money back within a year, like you should have a little bit more realistic expectations. This is not like a get rich quick scheme. It's very much an income strategy and a longer term asset play. So if you have a time horizon less than 3 years, mining probably isn't for you.
Okay. So essentially, you should, if Bitcoin price doesn't go up or down, it stays around 100K, you should get your money back within 2.5 to 3 years. That's
Yes.
that's the payback period, and then after that, it's just pure profit. Okay.